music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly, get caught in the fake. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truth and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hey there, and thanks for joining me. Yesterday, I kind of did a spontaneous version of the show, and it went really well for a solo show. Usually I have a guest, but I had some good interaction with the listening audience, so I thought I would try this again. So if you want to say something, please do. Whether you're on Twitter or YouTube. If you're on Twitter, though, and you don't mind, if you could click on the YouTube link. And the reason for that is I'm trying to get enough hours on YouTube to get monetized, and I'm getting closer and closer to being fully monetized, and that would just be swell. But if you can't do it, you can't do it, and that's the way it is. But yeah, either way, feel free to weigh in, and if you have any comments, just type them in there. And if you really have something to say and you want to just discuss it, I'm going to post a link right here and on the Twitter account that if you want to come on the show and share your thoughts, feel welcome. So I'm gonna just post that right here on the Twitter link. So either way, we're here, and today I want to talk about, hi John, hi Judith, Hollywood, Florida. I didn't know there was a Hollywood, Florida. Do you guys have a big Hollywood sign, or? Anyway, so today what I wanted to talk about is Trump's war on our constitutional rights. And this was just, I was doing some reading, and I started to notice a trend. And I'll get into that in a second. But first, if you're on Blue Sky, I just wanted to share this with you. This is something you may or may not know is there. This is a feed that is called Gifts, Links, and Articles. And that feed, if you didn't know, is if you didn't know about this feed, then all right, so it won't work that way. Anyway, if you didn't know about this feed, just go ahead and do a search for it in the feeds. You can just go down here, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. All right. Sorry for the weirdness of all this. So let's get this link, and we're just going to post this right here. All right. So now, if you didn't know, there's a feed called gift links, gift articles. And if you're on Blue Sky, you can go to that link, and all the the articles to well, not all of the articles, but all the articles that are in this feed are free. And so if you don't want to give money to the New York Times or the Washington Post or Jeff Bezos or whatever, then you can just come to this feed, and if there's an article worth reading, usually you'll be able to find it in this feed. So some of the articles I'm referencing here are behind a paywall, but there is the free gift link that I can post in here that I got from this feed. And so you can go ahead and read it there. And that's kind of cool to know. If you didn't know that, it is cool to know. But let's just look at some of these stories that are going on. So let's start with this one. And I'm actually going to play a little bit of this video. This is about the one girl, what's her, from Tufts. She was a PhD at Tufts. Her name is I'm Rumeysa Ozturk. I'm not sure. I probably did not pronounce it right, but I just want to show you this article. This is she was basically abducted off the street by federal agents, and this is like the actual footage of the actual encounter. We got it. Sorry, did not mean to do this. We're just gonna. Did not know that they were gonna do this to me, because they shouldn't be. But anyway, got to go through the Wayfair commercial first. I am not getting paid by Wayfair. I want you to know that. I don't know who that lady is. I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who that lady is. I don't know if they ever shopped at Wayfair. I don't know how much any of that stuff costs. We're almost done. Okay, now here we go. This guy is the agent right here, and this is the girl. And now she starts screaming in terror. Okay, so what was the great wrong she did? Well, she was a Muslim, and she was going to school in an American university, and she's here 100% legally and everything, so it's nothing to do with any of that. But she had the audacity to. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio determined Ozturk's alleged activities would have potentially seditious, serious adverse of. Hang on, I need to reading this a little. Serious adverse foreign policy consequences, and could comprise a compelling U.S. foreign policy interest. But what did she do? She was enrolled at a PhD program at So she was one of people who co-wrote an op-ed in the school newspaper, and when she criticized Tufts' response to a student government group call for the university to divest from companies with ties to Israel because of the conflict in Gaza, among other demands. Credible accusations against Israel include accounts of deliberate starvation and indiscriminate slaughter of Palestinian civilians and plausible genocide, the op-ed said. And so what the Trump administration is doing is they are equating that opposition with or that editorial with anti-Semitism. They're accusing her of being an anti-Semite because she said that Tufts needs to not encourage Israel to kill people. And this is part of the issue that the Republicans have with everything right now, is they cannot distinguish between free speech and whatever it is they're doing. There is such, I mean, isn't it ironic? Am I the only one that's kind of missed this? That the Republicans who have sat there and talked again and again and again and again about free speech and how they're the ones that are protecting free speech are now like deporting people for free speech. And it's not what they're saying. It's not some kind of there's no call for violence, no call for anything like that. She's not siding with Hamas. She's just saying stop killing innocent Palestinians. That's her big controversial view, is we shouldn't be killing innocent people in Gaza. And if that bothers you, then you have a serious issue. But more importantly, if that bothers you, you have a right to let it bother you. But what you don't have a right to do is have the government act on that. Like we talk about sending, when it came to Trump's account from Twitter being suspended or his Facebook account being suspended, that was censorship to them, even though it didn't involve the government at all. Censorship involves the government. This involves the government. This is literally the government punishing someone for what they said. And then they'll say, oh, well, it's about the principle. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be about the government. But then if you want to say it's about the principle, doesn't that apply to whether or not it's a citizen? Do only Americans have the right to free speech? They say, well, God bestowed those rights on us. Well, do you have to be an American for God to bestow rights on you? Does he not bestow rights on anybody else? Or does he recognize American citizens as being above all other citizens of all other countries? Where's the principle involved? You talk about principles, but you have none. Your only principle is to hate what you hate and adore what you adore and idolize whom you idolize. This is just wrong. There's no question about it. And it is unquestionably an attack on free speech. So the next thing I want to look at is you're here because of your tattoos. The Trump administration sent Venezuelans to El Salvador's most infamous prison. Their families are looking for answers. And they did this all without due process. And that is another human right? And another of our basic rights. And so you have people that were here legally, some of whom were here legally, and they were deported for having tattoos. And whether they're here legally or not is irrelevant. And whether they're here, whatever else, what the reasons that they're deported are also irrelevant. Because if they can be deported illegal, if they can be deported without a trial, without due process, so can you. There is absolutely no one that he can't ship off to an El Salvador prison and under the guise of, they're a terrorist or they're an illegal immigrant and they're a part of this gang. You don't have to prove anything at all because there's no one to prove it to. You just state a fact. You just state a thing as a fact, and then you act on your little made up thing. So it's like you start looking at it. Accidentally. Oh, okay. You start looking at it, and so what happened is this guy's wife didn't know what happened, and so she's looking at the photo, and she recognizes the tattoo, and that's how she found out he was in prison, in this El Salvador prison. As she was looking at the picture from the propaganda that the Trump administration keeps putting out with Christie the dog shooter, and she recognizes his tattoo, and this sinister gang tattoo that they say is a gang tattoo. I'll just highlight this part for you. The tattoo on Suarez's neck is a colibri. I don't speak Spanish, so I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. A hummingbird. His wife said it is meant to symbolize harmony and good energy. She said his other tattoos, like a palm tree on his hand, an homage to Suarez's late mother's use of a Venezuelan expression about God being greater than a coconut tree, were similarly innocuous. Nevertheless, they may be why Suarez has been effectively disappeared by the US government into a Salvadorian mega prison. And this is another right that is guaranteed in the Constitution. And Trump is getting around the fact that we have these rights by talking about the what is it called? I think it's called the Alien Sedition Act or something. Wow. The Alien Enemies Act. A law from 1798, last used during World War II. The order declared that the United States under invasion by Tren de Aragua is the first time in U.S. history that the 18th century statute, which gives the president extraordinary powers to detain and deport non-citizens, has been used absent a congressional declaration of war. So he is saying that this gang invaded the United States. And like, there's no working definition of invasion outside of their little political rhetoric. You know, they're outside of Republican propaganda. There's nothing to say that this was an invasion. Like, it's not an armed invasion. You do not have a nation. Like, look, I'm going to just look up the word invasion here. Invasion, an instance of invading a country or a religion or a region with an armed force. There is no armed force. There might be armed individuals that have come in, and there might be individuals who have come in that aren't armed and then got armed once they were in. But that does not make it an armed invasion. Nor does it, like, make it legal to deport them, because there's still due process. Like, the idea, and the reason they're specifying that this is, without the Congress specifying an act of war, is because there would actually have to be, if there were an armed invasion, you normally think of that as being a country that does invading, not random civilians. And the reason that, it can't be an invasion is it's a gang is not a country. And anyway, this is just a workaround around our rights to due process. And if they can deport one person based on this, they can deport anyone. Because where are you gonna have your due process? Where are you gonna have your right to defend yourself before a judge? Where are you gonna be able to say, I'm not a member of this gang? And so they're like, okay, well, they're a member. This gang members are, guilty, but guilty of what? And how do you know they're gang members? And so you have these people that are not gang members who were deported. And you can shave their head and take off their shirt, which is, if it is an act of war, that is a violation of the Geneva Convention to do that, and to, make this little propaganda picture of yours and say, look at all these gangsters. But how do you know they're gangsters? All I see are brown people with tattoos. That doesn't make you a gangster. That doesn't make you an invader of the country. And that doesn't make you a criminal. There's nothing illegal about getting a tattoo. And all any of these people have done is get a tattoo. And, like, a tattoo of a hummingbird. I mean, goodness. What? How can you be scared of a tattoo of a hummingbird? So then the next one. Okay. This is Trump executive orders on Smithsonian targets funding for programs with improper ideology. So then he goes on, it goes on. The order he signed behind closed doors puts Vice President J.D. Vance, who serves on the Smithsonian's Institution Board of Regents, in charge of overseeing efforts to remove improper ideology from all areas of the institution, including in its museums, education, and research, and the National Zoo. So you're like, what does improper ideology mean? And then, so you go on. The executive order also hints at the return of statues and monuments of Confederate figures, many of which were taken down or replaced around the country after the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020. The order also calls for improvements to blah, blah, blah. So this museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history, he said. But that's exactly what he's making them. He's making them sources of indoctrination, ideological indoctrination, and divisive narratives. Like, you don't need to have a statue of a Confederate soldier to learn that we had a history with the Confederacy. And so it's like when you say, divisive, devices to whom? Like, if you're an African American and your ancestors were slaves, and you go and you see this guy that used to own your ancestors, how is that not something that you would find offensive, or that you would find ideological indoctrination, that they were okay? It was okay for them to own your grandpappy. Like, that is not at all accurate. And what happened is we had an inaccurate representation of American history that got corrected. And now they want to whitewash it. And they want to take out all the bad stuff, and anybody that says it's bad is bad. Under Trump's order, Vance will work with the White House Budget Office to make sure that funding for the Smithsonian Institute isn't spent on programs that degrade shared American values. What American values are being degraded? Racism? Like, please explain. Divide Americans based on race? Okay, what does that mean? Not be white supremacists? Or promote programs or ideologies inconsistent with federal law and policy? Okay, well, there's nothing about federal law or policy. Well, now there is about policy, but only because your policy breaks federal law. You're mandating racism. When you're sitting there and all your attacks on DEI, and you're saying if you got a job because you're Black, you must not be qualified, you're the one being racist. That's why we have DEI, is to address racism. It is not racist to say, maybe we need to look at hiring Black people. That's not racist. What's racist is saying if you got hired as a Black person, you clearly were not qualified, and there was a white person who deserved the job more than you. But, up is down, down is up, Black is white, and white is Black. Okay, so now I'm just checking here I need to kind of go back and forth to check for comments to see if I got anything, if I missed anything. So that's number 2. So this one right here, we're talking now about more government censorship, right? And now it's not just what people can say, it's what institutions can say, it's what educational institutions can say. It's trying to control not just the response, but even what you're allowed to learn, what you're allowed to know. When you start attacking our universities, and when you start attacking our museums, and you start attacking thought, then that is another way of attacking the First Amendment. Okay. So now we've got Trump targets another law firm citing ties to Robert Mueller. And that goes over along with okay, this one. And then, okay, so this is, it's called Wilmer Hell. And there's an irony that he is attacking, he's going after them and saying that because they hired Robert Mueller, then they can't have government contracts anymore, because they're weaponizing of the judicial system. Now forget about the fact that it was Trump's DOJ that hired, or that appointed Robert Mueller to investigate the Russia what's the opposite of hoax? Reality? No, it's not a hoax. It actually happened. But setting that aside, the fact that after Mueller finished his investigation in 2021, he went to this law firm and he's been hired there, and now they can't do work with the government anymore, and they have the audacity to represent immigrants pro bono. And so that's obviously bad, because they're like basically encouraging immigrants to import drugs or whatever, and according to the Trump administration. So this is actually another attack on a civil liberty. This is an attack on our right to counsel, so, which is our Sixth Amendment right. And you start to see there's it's not just some rights that are under attack, it's all of our rights that are under attack. Our First Amendment right is under attack, well, except for our Second Amendment, but we haven't seen any liberals. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not too long before they start declaring that unless you're a Republican, you're not allowed to have a gun or something. Then it's just so. Anyway, right to counsel, right to due process, right to speech, all of those things are under attack. And now, this one, if you haven't seen this one's kind of a big deal. Trump warned U.S. automakers not to raise prices in response to tariffs. So I won't go into all of that. If you want to read the article, I'll just drop the link into the podcast here. But just the headline's enough, right? It goes on and explains that Trump had this conversation with the automakers, and he told them that they're not, there's going to be pushback from the administration if the American automakers raise prices in result of the tariff. So what does that mean? That means that the automakers, if there's a 25% increase in their cost and then they're not allowed to pass that on, that means they have to take a loss. And I mean, I thought that they were like about capitalism and stuff, Republicans, but I guess not anymore. I guess you have to be, I don't even know what to say about that. Can you imagine if a Democrat had told automakers that they weren't allowed to raise their prices? Remember how they called Kamala Harris Kamala Harris, because she just suggested that it should be illegal to price gouge when inflation, because of with inflation and the food prices, and you had like 2 or 3 insurance companies food company, grocery companies coordinating together to raise prices so that it would wouldn't make any one of them look bad, but everybody can make more money. And she said, like that should be illegal. And they called her a communist because of that. And now you have Donald Trump telling automakers, you're not allowed to raise prices. And so they're going to take a loss. And then you have the car companies like the Chinese car companies are getting the electric car companies are getting these massive tariffs. You know who's not suffering because of any of this? Is Elon Musk. It's like, what a coincidence. The one company that's going to be able to avoid all this, like losing money is Elon Musk's. I wonder why that is. Anybody have any thoughts on that? So, now let's go into the next one. So that's now we've got a war on the rights of private businesses to set their own prices. And then you've got this other one, intelligence assessment warns against conflating legal must protests with vandalism. And in this one, they're talking about the Department of Justice is saying, we can't really call this vandalism with terrorism or anything, even though Trump is doing it. We can't prosecute it that way. But what we're getting to here is like, why is the Department of Justice getting involved in this anyway? What does the Department of Justice have to do with vandalism? The only federal crime against vandalism is if you're vandalizing government property. There's nothing to do with vandalism of private property. There's no federal law against that. And there are state laws against that, and there are city laws against that. There's all kinds of those kinds of laws, but those should be prosecuted by state and local jurisdictions. So they said that they've looked into it. There's nothing organized about them. These are just individuals acting as individuals. These are not things that are it's not like some sort of left-wing Proud Boys type operation here. And as we learned on January 6th, that when the right-wingers would say, oh, well, if it's terrorism, why didn't you prosecute anyone with terrorism? And it's because there are no federal laws against terrorism per se. And so they had to find laws that were broken, and instead that including the federal laws against vandalism, as they were vandalizing the Capitol building, which, in case you didn't know, is a federal building. So now this is I think it's, if you haven't heard, what is that called? It's for like when I was singing it's habeas corpus, but maybe that's not it. For you can't be prosecuted for something that wasn't illegal when you did it. Ex post facto. It's called ex post facto laws. That's it. And that means that, if somebody were to pass a law against, domestic terrorism, you couldn't retroactively go and prosecute the January 6th offenders for those, even if they were to do it the next day after that became law. You could prosecute them for it, but you can't prosecute people for things they did before a law was passed. You can only do it after. That's called ex post facto, and that is inscribed in the Constitution. And this is another way of Trump trying to get around that by trying to basically make something that is not illegal, that is not a federal crime. And you've got even the Department of Justice right now is pushing back on that, but we'll see how far that goes. It's not like Trump has relented on this at all. Okay, and now, so that's another constitutional right that is getting dragged by Trump. And finally, Trump moves to end union protections across broad swath of government. So this one is he's basically he's trying to say that the federal workers and federal unions don't have a right to negotiate. He's taking away collective bargaining agreement from federal workers. So he's taking away the workers' rights. He's taking away, private corporation rights. He's taking away the right to due process. He's taking away the right to not be prosecuted for ex post facto laws. He's taking away the right to free speech. He's taking away the right to teach what you want. He's taking away the right to having a defense lawyer, or to having just dropped my brain. What is that called? The due process, the right to due process. Sorry. Just kind of figuring out this stuff. So anyway, I just, like as I was looking at all this stuff, I kept thinking, wow, I wasn't going into this thinking of it being like the show today or anything. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized there is a real war on all our rights, except for the Second Amendment. Gotta give him credit. He hasn't attacked that yet, but it's only a matter of time. And if he had really been shot, then probably there would be something going on there. Anyway, I must be boring today because I'm not getting any feedback. So, but all right, that's fine. I don't even know if anybody's watching at this moment. But I just, I think we need to not just give up. We need to continue to protest. We need to continue to fight back. We need to continue to push for town halls. We need to continue all of these things. We can't just give up the fight, even though he's trying to take away our civil rights. Just hopefully we won't end up in a prison in El Salvador or something. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.